You think you know who you are. You wake up in the morning with a name, a face, a story. You go about your life, making decisions, chasing dreams, managing pain, all based on the idea that this self you carry is real. But what if it isn't? What if everything you think is you, your personality, your ambitions, your reactions, your preferences, is actually a mask? What if the version of yourself you've spent years perfecting, protecting, and projecting was built to survive, not to be free? You see, the most dangerous prison is the one you can't see. And the most devastating lie is the one you believe so deeply. You never think to question it. That's the lie of the false self. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It lives in the tone of your thoughts, the tension in your smile, the decisions you make just to feel safe. And it keeps you locked out of your own soul. You've been taught to chase success, validation, love, and control. But all along, the real you has been buried underneath that performance. Tonight, you meet the one behind the mask. Not the actor. Not the avatar. Not the ego. But the essence. And once you see the truth, you can never go back. You were born whole. Not perfect, but whole. You cried when you were hungry. You screamed when something hurt. You danced, touched, played, explored, without shame or explanation. You didn't care who was watching. Because in the beginning, there was no mask. There was only being. But the world doesn't love rawness. It loves obedience. So the first bricks of the false self were handed to you not as punishments, but as protection. Maybe your parents didn't know how to hold your emotions, so you learned to shrink them. Maybe you were only praised when you performed, so you learned to become the performance. Maybe your environment punished difference, so you became what they wanted, and called it identity. And slowly, brick by brick, you built it. A version of yourself that would survive. You became the smart one, the funny one, the strong one, the pretty one, the good boy, the good girl. But what you didn't realize is that every role you took on was a role that buried who you actually were. Each time you adjusted to be liked, you amputated a piece of your truth. Each time you silenced your tears to avoid rejection, you buried your authenticity under the floorboards of your nervous system. And eventually, the mask didn't feel like a costume anymore. It felt like you. So you forgot. You forgot that your sensitivity was a gift. You forgot that your rage was sacred. You forgot that your voice was once loud, playful, alive. And in that forgetting, you stopped being. You started acting. Even now, you might think you're making conscious choices. But how much of what you do is actually just a reflex of the false self trying to avoid pain? You smile not because you're happy, but because it's easier than explaining your sadness. You work hard not because it fills your soul, but because you're terrified of being seen as lazy, worthless, invisible. You say yes out of fear. You say no with guilt. You achieve to be enough. You shrink to be safe. And this becomes your life. But it isn't your life. It's a performance. A psychological survival script, written not by your soul, but by your fear of rejection. The false self is not evil. It's efficient. It's the perfect solution to a world that didn't love the real you enough. But here's the problem. The false self can keep you alive, but it cannot make you feel alive. And one day, you look in the mirror and see someone who looks like you, talks like you, functions like you, but doesn't feel like you. You feel like a stranger in your own skin, and you can't quite name it. But deep down you know, this isn't who I really am. That ache, that restlessness, that quiet despair, it's the true self knocking on the walls of your psyche, asking to be remembered. But remembering won't be easy, because to find your truth, you'll have to confront every lie you ever believed about yourself. They sound like facts. They live in your thoughts, your posture, your voice. They shape how you walk into a room, how you react to silence, how you treat love. But they're not truths. They're programs. Deep, unconscious messages planted long ago that you never thought to question. They're so familiar, you mistake them for intuition. But they're not your inner voice. They're someone else's fear, living rent-free in your mind. Let's look at the lies. This one is common. It's usually born when love was made conditional. Maybe your parents praised your achievements more than your being. Maybe affection only came when you were quiet, polite, productive, or convenient. So you internalized it. If I'm perfect, they'll stay. If I mess up, I'll be abandoned. You grew into an overachiever. Always performing. Always preparing. Always terrified of slipping. And when things go well, you feel relief, not joy. Because your worth has become a contract. One mistake, and you fear it all unravels. But perfectionism isn't excellence. It's self-abandonment dressed as ambition. This one lives in your throat. It was planted when your emotions were ignored, mocked, or punished. When you learned that being too emotional meant rejection. So you adapted. You swallowed your needs. You faked being okay. You made yourself easy to love by becoming invisible. Now every time you want to speak up, a voice inside whispers, "Don't bother." You'll push them away. You think you're being selfless. But really, you're afraid of being seen as a burden. You've built relationships on silence. Then wonder why no one really knows you. This is the core of the false self. You wear masks in every room. Tough in public, soft in private. Funny with friends, intellectual at work, spiritual online, broken at night. You believe that if anyone ever saw the whole you, the grief, the anger, the jealousy, the chaos, the weirdness, they'd run. So you filter. You filter your joy, your pain, your thoughts, even your love. You give people access to only the parts of you that feel safe. Then wonder why connection feels so shallow. But here's the truth. Real love cannot reach a mask. Only the real you can ever be truly loved. And that's terrifying, because you've forgotten who that is. Another trap. You learned early that your output determined your value. Good grades equals praise. Helping others equals safety. Winning equals love. So now you never stop doing. You hustle, achieve, serve, fix. You're always busy, but strangely empty. Because when you tie your identity to doing, stillness feels like death. You don't know how to just be. You don't know how to say, "I'm worthy," without proving it. But you were never meant to be a machine. You're a soul. You're not what you produce. You are who you are, when there's nothing left to prove. At some point, this lie saved you. Fitting in meant protection. Blending in meant survival. So you became a chameleon. Shape-shifting in every room to keep the peace. You read people's moods like radar. You gave them the version of you they wanted, not the one you are. And you were praised for it. Easygoing. Adaptable. Empathetic. But no one ever asked, "What did you want?" Now you don't know. Because you've lived your whole life being who they need. Not who you are. These lies are not thoughts. They are embedded in your nervous system. They are the architecture of the false self. They form the lens through which you see the world, and yourself. And because they're unconscious, they shape every relationship, every career decision, every response to conflict, every avoidance of joy. But now you're seeing them. And awareness changes everything. Because once a lie is seen, it begins to dissolve. Once you question it, it no longer owns you. And once you feel the grief beneath it, the part of you that knew better but had no choice, you begin to come home. On the outside, everything looks good. You've done the things. The job, the image, the accomplishments, maybe even the family, the routine, the goals checked off. You've played the game so well that even your pain looks polished. People look at you and say, "You're doing great. You've made it. You're so lucky." But late at night, in the quiet, you feel hollow. Like you're watching your life happen from behind glass. Present, but not here. Successful, but not alive. This is the curse of the false self. It can build a life that wins approval, but not one that feeds your soul. Because it wasn't created by your soul. It was created by fear. Fear of not being enough. Fear of being seen. Fear of disappointing the people you performed for your whole life. So you chose safety over authenticity. You built a life that looked right, but didn't feel right. You chased goals, not knowing they were distractions. You built relationships from your mask, not your truth. You followed the script and lost the plot. Now the emptiness isn't a failure. It's an invitation. A message from the real you. This isn't who we are. And if you can sit with that dissonance, if you can resist the urge to run back into performance, you'll begin to feel something ancient and sacred rising inside you. Not ambition, not status, not external validation, but presence, soul, truth. And truth always starts as discomfort, before it becomes freedom. The mask can only hold for so long. At first it works. You wear it to be accepted, to be loved, to succeed. You keep the chaos hidden behind the smile. You keep moving, pretending, performing, until one day, you can't. The cracks begin subtly. You lose interest in things you once craved. You feel anxious in places that used to comfort you. You wake up tired, not from lack of sleep, but from carrying too many versions of yourself. Then it hits harder. A breakdown. A breakup. A burnout. A moment of stillness that suddenly becomes unbearable. This is the collapse of the persona. It feels like dying. And in a way it is. Because the version of you that was built to survive, the achiever, the pleaser, the strong one, is falling apart. You've outgrown the lies that once protected you. And the soul you buried beneath the performance is rising to the surface. It's messy. It's terrifying. It feels like losing yourself. But in truth, you're losing who you never were. The collapse isn't punishment. It's rebirth. It's your soul saying, enough. No more pretending. No more half-life. No more performance. Now the work begins. Now the real you begins to emerge, raw, sacred, untamed. After the collapse, there's silence. Not the kind that feels lonely, but the kind that feels unfamiliar. Still. Heavy. Quiet. You don't know what to do anymore. The old roles don't fit. The old dreams feel lifeless. The old mask, too suffocating to wear, too familiar to throw away. And then something strange happens. You begin to feel yourself. Not the one they applauded. Not the one you curated. But the one you left behind long ago. The part of you that speaks in stillness. That doesn't chase, but listens. That doesn't perform, but simply is. You feel flashes of authenticity. Moments where your voice feels real again. Moments where your laughter isn't controlled. Moments where your no doesn't come with guilt. This is the true self. The one that was never gone, only buried. It rises not with fanfare, but with gentleness. Not with certainty, but with presence. You begin to remember. The dreams you abandoned. The parts of yourself you disowned. The desires you buried to be accepted. And now you see them. Not as weaknesses, but as guideposts. Returning to your true self isn't about inventing a new identity. It's about removing what was never yours. It's about unlearning, shedding, reclaiming. And as each layer of falseness falls away, you don't become someone new. You remember who you've been all along. No destination, just presence. So much has been stripped away. The masks, the roles, the noise. Now something new begins to stir. But it doesn't scream. It whispers. And for the first time, you're quiet enough to hear it. This is not the ego. Not the anxious voice that worries what they'll think. Not the voice of fear calculating every move. This is something deeper. The higher self doesn't rush. It doesn't beg. It doesn't perform. It simply knows. It feels like calm in chaos. Like peace that doesn't need proof. Like strength that isn't loud. It feels like coming home to your body. No longer ashamed. No longer at war. You feel your breath again. You feel grounded, rooted, alive. It feels like choosing truth, even when it costs you approval. It feels like saying no without explanation. Saying yes without fear. And walking away without guilt. It's not perfection. It's not enlightenment in a flash of light. It's more subtle than that. More human. It's the way your chest softens around people who honor your spirit. It's the way your body says, "This is right." before your mind can explain why. It's the way solitude no longer feels empty, but sacred. You begin to crave depth. You become allergic to small talk, shallow goals, cheap highs. And slowly, you stop abandoning yourself. You realize the higher self isn't above you. It is you. The you that's always been underneath the noise, waiting for you to remember. Not someone you have to become, but someone you have to allow. You were not born to be a mask. You were not designed to be liked by everyone. You were born real, raw, radiant, and whole. Before they named you, you were. Before they labeled you, you knew. Before they taught you how to be, you already were. That child, wild, intuitive, and unfiltered, still lives inside you. And now, after the collapse of the false self, after the reckoning, after the grief, you return. But this time, with eyes wide open. You remember the dreams that made your heart pound. The way you used to talk to the moon. The way you sang without caring how you sounded. The way you loved without armor. You remember what joy felt like without needing an audience. What success felt like without comparison. What love felt like without transaction. Becoming who you were before the world got to you isn't a backward journey. It's a sacred return. It's waking up from a long, exhausting spell. It's looking in the mirror and finally saying, "This is me." Not the idea of me. Not the version they wanted. Me. It means you no longer apologize for your intensity, your depth, your passion. You wear your scars as symbols of truth. You walk with the weight of wisdom. You speak only when it's real. And you rest, not out of laziness, but reverence for your soul. You don't chase alignment anymore. You become it. This is the path of wholeness. You are no longer what they told you to be. You are no longer the version you built to survive. You are finally who you were meant to be. Not perfect, but true. And in this truth there is power. Not the kind that dominates others, but the kind that frees them. Because when you live without a mask, you give others permission to take off theirs too. And maybe, just maybe, that's how the world heals. You were never lost. You were just buried beneath who the world told you to be. And now, you've remembered. Not through noise, but through silence. Not through striving, but through surrender. You've peeled away the lies of the false self. You've faced the shadows you were taught to ignore. And now you stand bare, honest, real. Not who you think you are, but who you truly are. Let that become your compass. Let that truth guide your relationships, your voice, your path. You are not your past. You are not your performance. You are the awareness beneath it all. And from this place, everything begins again.